The internet was on fire before anyone even knew what was happening. A single clip just 20 seconds long had already spread across Twitter, Instagram, and every gossip blog in the country. Karlie read, known for stirring the pot on and off camera, had done it again. The caption on her post read only, "Since y'all love receipts, here you go." Within minutes, millions of people had clicked play, and what they saw left fans gasping. Kirk Frost, the man everyone thought was finally settling down and rebuilding his marriage with Rasheeda, was sitting across from an unidentified woman at a dimly lit restaurant. No context, no explanation, just whispered words, nervous glances, and Kirk sliding what looked like a folder across the table. Comment sections exploded. "Why would Karlie post this?" One fan wrote, "Is this from last night or old footage?" Another demanded, "The streets of Atlanta were buzzing." Reality TV blogs were already calling it the leak of the year. For Rasheeda, though, it wasn't just trending drama, it was personal. Sources close to her say she saw the clip the same way everyone else did, scrolling through her feed in disbelief. Her first reaction was confusion, then came anger. By the time she realized the footage was authentic, tears had already started rolling down her face. Reportedly, the video was filmed just 2 nights before, at a private lounge known for keeping celebrity meetings discreet. Insiders claim Karlie had been at the same venue celebrating a friend's birthday when she noticed Kirk walk in. Her phone was already recording, half by instinct. "You can't make this stuff up," a source told one gossip outlet. Karlie didn't even plan it, she just caught him red. But others aren't buying it. Fans are divided, debating whether the clip was a setup, part of a new storyline, or something far deeper, something that could finally break one of love and hip-hop's longest relationships. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more dramatic, rumors began spreading that Rasheeda had confronted Karlie directly after seeing the post. One eyewitness described the scene as intense, like the cameras should have been rolling. Apparently, Rasheeda demanded to know why her supposed friend would publicly humiliate her instead of coming to her privately. Karlie's alleged response, "Maybe this is the only way you'll finally see what's really going on." Within hours, Kirk's name was trending nationwide. Bloggers were digging through old photos, matching locations, and speculating about who the woman might be. The energy online was chaotic, half sympathy for Rasheeda, half curiosity about what Kirk was hiding. Every frame of that leaked clip was analyzed like evidence in a crime. And yet, behind the viral headlines, one question lingered louder than all the others. What was really in that folder Kirk handed over? And why did Karlie risk everything to expose it? As the night wore on, fans stayed glued to their screens. Insiders teased that this was only the beginning, hinting that the full video might reveal even more explosive details. For the Frost family, though, the damage was already done. By sunrise, Rasheeda had reportedly locked herself in her boutique office, refusing to answer calls. Kirk's phone went straight to voicemail. Atlanta hadn't seen a storm like this in years, and everyone knew the fallout was just beginning. Under the soft glow of Atlanta streetlights, the city was still humming with the echoes of gossip that refused to die down. Cars passed by the Frost family boutique as people gathered outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of Rasheeda. Her phone had not stopped vibrating since the footage leaked, each notification a reminder of the betrayal replaying across every social media platform. Inside, the store was quiet except for the sound of her heels against the tiled floor. She had been pacing for hours, replaying the clip in her head. Kirk sitting in that lounge, leaning across the table, sliding that mysterious folder. No words, no context, just that image burning through her thoughts. It wasn't the first time rumors surrounded them, but this felt different. This felt final. At the same time, Kirk was nowhere to be found. Friends said he had left the house early that morning, supposedly to clear his head, but Atlanta is small when the drama is this big. People talk, cameras follow, and privacy becomes a myth. By noon, fans had already spotted his car parked behind a recording studio on Edgewood Avenue. When questioned by a few onlookers, Kirk reportedly stayed silent, his face tense, avoiding every question thrown at him. One witness said he looked like a man carrying more than guilt, like someone trying to hide a storm. Meanwhile, Karlie Red was at her condo, scrolling through comments, watching the chaos unfold. She hadn't expected it to blow up this fast. The video had been meant as a warning, a subtle nudge to Rasheeda, but the internet had taken it and turned it into a wildfire. Her phone rang every few seconds, producers, bloggers, former castmates, all wanting to know if the footage was real. Karlie, always one to keep things mysterious, gave no straight answers. "Let them talk," she said in an Instagram story that only added fuel to the flames. Truth always finds the light. Rasheeda's mother called around 2 p.m., her voice trembling with both anger and concern. "Baby, don't let this mess break you again," she said. But the truth was, Rasheeda wasn't sure how much more she could take. Years of loyalty, forgiveness, and rebuilding had already stretched her heart thin. And now, after everything, seeing Kirk in that clip felt like watching history repeat itself. She sat down behind the counter, staring at the framed photo of her and Kirk on their wedding anniversary. The smiles, the promise, the illusion. The producers of Love and Hip Hop were already plotting their next move. This was the kind of drama that ratings were built on. Calls went out to every cast member, scheduling emergency interviews, hinting that cameras would start rolling again within days. But what no one knew was that Kirk had already reached out to someone privately, a man known in Atlanta's entertainment circles for fixing public relations disasters. Kirk needed control of the story before it swallowed him whole. Late that evening, Rasheeda finally left the boutique. Paparazzi followed her car down Peachtree Street, flashing cameras as she tried to hide her face behind dark glasses. When she reached home, Kirk's car was parked in the driveway. The lights were on inside. For a moment, she sat in the car, frozen, unsure if she wanted to go in. When she finally did, Kirk was sitting on the couch, the television muted but showing the same leaked video playing in a loop. The air between them was heavy. "So you saw it?" he said quietly, not looking up. Rasheeda crossed her arms. "You think I could miss it? The whole world's seen it, Kirk. What's in that folder?" He sighed, leaning forward, rubbing his hands together. "It's not what it looks like." "That's what you said last time," she replied, her voice shaking. "Do you know what it feels like to wake up and find out your husband's trending for meeting another woman again?" He finally looked at her, his eyes tired. "That woman is a business contact. The folder had contracts for a deal I've been working on. Karlie caught it at the worst possible time. So why the secrecy?" she demanded. "Why meet her at night? Why a private lounge?" "Because it's confidential, Rasheeda. I was trying to protect something that could help us." "Protect us?" She laughed bitterly. "You can't even protect our name." There was a pause. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched like a wound too deep to close. Outside, the sound of sirens passed by, a reminder that the city never really sleeps. Not even when hearts are breaking inside quiet homes. Meanwhile, across town, Karlie was at a dinner meeting with a producer who had been trying to convince her to delete the post. The network was furious. They feared legal issues, contracts, and backlash. "You're playing with fire," the producer warned. "You know how this could turn out if Kirk decides to sue." Karlie stirred her drink slowly, "If it wasn't true, he wouldn't be this mad," she said. "Sometimes you gotta let people show who they really are." But deep down, even she was second-guessing her decision. She had seen something in that footage that unsettled her, not the woman, not the folder, but Kirk's expression. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of something bigger than what the public could see. And that's when she began wondering if she had stumbled into something she wasn't supposed to expose. The next day, fans lined up outside Frost Bistro, hoping for answers. Employees whispered that Kirk hadn't shown up for work, and Rasheeda had canceled her schedule. Local reporters hovered around the parking lot until security forced them to leave. Atlanta's gossip scene lived for moments like this, and everyone wanted a piece of it. But behind the spectacle, Rasheeda was breaking down in private, torn between anger and exhaustion. Later that night, she sat in her bedroom scrolling through old photos on her phone, memories of family vacations, studio sessions, and smiles that now felt distant. Her hand trembled as she opened Kirk's contact, hovering over the call button. She wanted to scream, to ask why he kept putting her in these positions. But before she could call, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. "You don't know the full story. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the park near Lenox." Attached was a photo, the same folder Kirk had slid across the table, now slightly open, revealing what looked like documents marked confidential. Rasheeda's heart raced. She stared at the message, unsure if it was a setup or a clue. For the first time since the video dropped, she felt something other than anger, curiosity. She didn't tell anyone about the message, not even her closest friends. She deleted it, but the image stayed burned in her mind. Across town, Kirk met with his PR contact again. The man was blunt. "You need to get ahead of this. If that folder comes out, your whole story changes." Kirk leaned back, rubbing his temples. "I didn't do anything wrong." The man smirked. "Doesn't matter. Perception is stronger than truth." Kirk nodded slowly, realizing that he was already losing control. As dawn approached, the tension in Atlanta felt electric. Blogs teased that a second video might drop soon. Karlie's cryptic posts only added to the suspense. Rasheeda barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kirk's face from the video. The mysterious woman, the folder, and the message from that unknown number. She knew she had to find out what was really going on if the truth broke her heart. The morning sun crept through the curtains, bathing the room in soft light. She took a deep breath, picked up her bag, and walked out of the house without saying a word. The park near Lenox was quiet at that hour, except for the rustling of leaves. As she approached the benches, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. It wasn't who she expected. It was Karlie. "You shouldn't have come," Karlie said quietly, looking around as if someone might be watching. "You sent the message?" Rasheeda asked, her voice low but tense. "No," Karlie replied, "but whoever did, they're playing both of us, and it's about to get a lot worse." Rasheeda's stomach tightened. She wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding, that the leak could be undone, that Kirk was innocent, but deep down, she knew that once a secret starts unraveling in Atlanta, it never stops until it destroys everything in its path. Rasheeda stood there frozen, the morning breeze pushing through her hair while the weight of Karlie's words settled in her chest. "What do you mean both of us?" she asked, her tone sharp. Karlie hesitated before speaking again. "There's more footage." What I posted was only a clip. Someone sent it to me with a warning that Kirk was involved in something big. I didn't believe it at first, but after seeing the full video," she trailed off, glancing around nervously. Rasheeda's heart pounded. "What full video? You said you recorded it yourself." Karlie shook her head. "That's what I wanted people to think. I only caught the last few seconds, but whoever filmed it, they've been watching Kirk for weeks." Rasheeda's breath hitched. The idea of someone secretly recording her husband terrified her, even if part of her still burned with anger. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "Because I didn't know who to trust," Karlie said. "Every time I tried to ask questions, I got blocked or threatened. I thought posting the clip would flush them out." The conversation was interrupted by the buzz of a phone. Karlie checked hers and went pale. "It's them," she whispered. She turned the screen toward Rasheeda, an anonymous message that read, "Stop digging, or the next leak won't be about Kirk." Rasheeda's blood ran cold. "This is getting out of hand," she said. "You shouldn't have posted anything." Karlie bit her lip. Too late for that now. They've got everything. Meanwhile, Kirk sat in his car outside Frost Bistro, staring at the building he and Rasheeda had built together. His mind was racing. His phone kept lighting up with missed calls from producers, fans, even family, but he ignored them all. He opened the glove compartment, pulled out a small USB drive, and stared at it for a long time. It was the backup copy of everything that had been in that folder: the contracts, the names, the hidden deals that, if taken out of context, could destroy more than just his marriage. Sighing heavily, he started the engine and drove off toward an old studio in Midtown. Inside, a man in a hoodie was waiting. "You're late," the man said, sliding his phone across the table. On the screen was the same leaked video. Paused on the moment Kirk pushed the folder toward the woman. "You realize how bad this looks, right?" Kirk clenched his jaw. "I'm paying you to handle it, not remind me." The man smirked. "To handle it, I need leverage. And right now, the person holding that leverage isn't scared of you." Back at the park, Rasheeda's phone buzzed. Next, a new notification from an entertainment blog. Headline: Exclusive, new angle of Kirk's secret meeting surfaces, shows woman handing over cash. Her fingers trembled as she clicked the link. There it was. A different camera angle, clearly showing Kirk receiving an envelope. Karlie gasped. "That's not what I posted. This is another leak." Rasheeda felt her stomach twist. "I need answers, Karlie, real ones." She turned away and started walking fast toward her car, ignoring Karlie's voice calling after her. Her mind was spinning as she drove home, each red light stretching the silence. She didn't know what to believe anymore. If Kirk was hiding something, it wasn't just personal, it was dangerous. When she arrived, Kirk was waiting in the driveway. He looked exhausted, his eyes bloodshot. "We need to talk," he said softly. "No," Rasheeda snapped. "You need to talk. I'm done covering for you." She pushed past him and went inside, but he followed. "You think I don't know how bad this looks?" he said. "But there's more to it, I swear." She turned to face him. "Then explain. Right now? Because I just saw a second video, and this time you're taking money." Kirk froze. "That's edited," he said quickly. "Someone's framing me." "Who?" she demanded. He hesitated. "Someone I used to work with, a promoter named Tyrone. He's been blackmailing me for months. I met that woman to pay him off quietly. That's what the folder was about." Rasheeda stared at him, trying to read his face. "You expect me to believe that? That you're being blackmailed and you never said a word?" "I was trying to protect you," he said, voice cracking. "I thought if I handled it myself, it would go away." "You keep saying that," she said bitterly. "Every time you lie, you say it's to protect me." I don't need protection, Kirk. I need honesty. The sound of her voice broke him. He sank onto the couch, covering his face. It's not just me, he said quietly. Other people from the show are involved. They're paying to keep certain stories buried. And whoever leaked this, they're coming for everyone. Rasheeda froze. What stories? He looked up at her, eyes full of regret. Old scandals, fake scenes that were covered up, deals between producers and cast. They want to expose how deep it really goes. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky as if echoing the chaos inside the house. Rasheeda sat down slowly, the weight of his words pressing down on her. So this isn't just about us, she said softly. No, Kirk replied. It's about the whole show. While the Frost household was unraveling, Karlie had gone silent online. Her social media accounts were suddenly wiped clean. No posts, no stories. Fans began speculating that she had been silenced by legal threats or worse. Some said she left town. Others believed she was hiding. But in reality, she was meeting with someone in a dimly lit parking lot behind a TV studio. A man stepped out of a black SUV and handed her a small package. You didn't get this from me, he said. When she opened it later, she found printed screenshots of private text messages, conversations between Kirk and several unnamed producers. Messages that hinted at payoffs, manipulation, and hidden footage that never made it to air. She scrolled through them with trembling hands. Realizing she was holding proof of something much bigger than a cheating scandal, she called Rasheeda immediately, but there was no answer. She tried again and again, until finally leaving a message. Sheeda, whatever you think this is, it's not just Kirk. It's deeper than you know. Call me back before it's too late. But Rasheeda was already making her own move. She had driven to Tyrone's last known address, a small recording space on the outskirts of Atlanta. The building was dark, the sign half broken. She parked outside, waiting, watching for any sign of life. Finally, a door creaked open and a tall man stepped out, talking on the phone. She recognized his voice from an old party years ago. Yeah, I got it all, he was saying. Next drop goes live at midnight if they don't pay up. Her pulse quickened. She grabbed her phone and hit record. But before she could capture more, the man turned and saw her. What the hell? He started, stepping toward her. But Rasheeda sped off, tires screeching against the pavement. Her heart raced as she looked in the mirror. He was running after the car, shouting something she couldn't make out. By the time she reached home, she was shaking. Kirk stood in the doorway, confused. Where were you? He asked. Trying to clean up another one of your messes. She shot back. She slammed her phone on the counter, showing him the video. That's your blackmailer, right? Because he just confirmed it's not about cheating, it's about money and control. Kirk's eyes widened. You went there. Someone had to, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. I'm done being the one left in the dark. Whatever this is, we end it together, or we end, period. He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy. Somewhere in the distance, lightning cracked across the skyline. The city glowing for a moment before sinking back into shadow. Inside that house, two people sat side by side, both knowing that the truth was coming, whether they were ready or not. Then that when it finally hit, nothing in Atlanta's reality TV world would ever be the same again. The next morning began with chaos that reached every corner of Atlanta's gossip circuit. The blogs were posting new screenshots every hour. The radio stations were dissecting theories live on air. And fans were convinced a full-blown scandal was about to explode. Outside Frost Bistro, paparazzi crowded the sidewalks, shouting questions at anyone who walked past. Inside, Rasheeda sat at a back table with her head resting on her hand, trying to block out the noise from her phone. Her boutique's official account had been tagged in hundreds of posts overnight, all demanding that she speak her truth. She didn't even know what her truth was anymore. She hadn't slept. The clip of Tyrone's voice still echoed in her head, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw that folder sliding across the table again. Kirk walked in quietly, his expression weary. He hadn't said much since the night before. We can't ignore this, he said, pulling out a chair across from her. Rasheeda didn't look up. I'm not ignoring it, she said softly. I'm processing how my husband managed to get mixed up in blackmail, extortion, and God knows what else. Kirk sighed. It's not that simple. It never is, she said, finally lifting her eyes to meet his. But you owe me the whole story, Kirk. No more half. What's really going on? He leaned forward, his hands clasped. Years ago, before the show blew up, some producers started pushing fake storyline stuff meant to make people look worse than they were. I got caught up in one of those deals. They promised extra checks, extra screen time, If I played along, it worked for a while, but when I tried to pull out, they said I'd already signed a confidentiality clause that gave them control over certain parts of my image. Tyrone was one of their middlemen. He's been sitting on receipts for years, threatening to leak them. Rasheeda felt a chill creep up her spine. So this is punishment. Kirk nodded. They want me to go back under contract. Sign another deal that keeps me quiet. She exhaled, rubbing her temples. You should have told me from the start. Instead, you let the whole world think you were creeping again. Kirk looked away. I thought I could handle it. Well, you can't, she said. Not anymore. She stood, grabbing her phone. We're taking this to someone who can. Kirk frowned. Who? Someone the producers can't silence, she said. An hour later, they were parked outside a sleek downtown building that housed one of Atlanta's biggest entertainment lawyers. Inside, a sharp-dressed woman in her 40s listened carefully as Rasheeda laid out everything: the folder, the leaks, the blackmail, the texts. The lawyer's expression stayed calm, but her eyes told a different story. This isn't just gossip, she said finally. If those contracts exist, they're operating outside legal limits. But before we move forward, we need proof. Kirk handed her the USB drive. It's all in here. She took it, placed it on her desk, and nodded. Then you two need to disappear from the spotlight for a while. Let me handle the press. That night, social media erupted again. Fans noticed both Kirk and Rasheeda had gone silent. No posts, no comments, no appearances. Rumors spread that they'd separated. Others claimed they were filming a tell-all special in secret. Meanwhile, Karlie had resurfaced online, posting a cryptic message that read, "Sometimes the truth gets you in trouble, but lies can get you buried." It was only a few words, but it reignited everything. Rasheeda watched it from her hotel room, anger flashing across her face. She's still playing games, she muttered. Kirk sat nearby, scrolling through emails. Ignore her. The more you react, the bigger it gets. But Rasheeda couldn't let it go. She typed out a post of her own, her fingers trembling. You can only poke a loyal woman so long before she stops protecting your secrets. She hit upload. Within minutes, it went viral. Fans flooded the comments, calling it a warning shot and begging for explanations. By morning, the lawyer called with an update. I've gone through the files, she said. There's more here than I expected. These contracts tie half the cast to manipulated plots. And some of the payments came from accounts linked to a shell company. Someone's laundering money through the show. Rasheeda's stomach dropped. So what happens now? If this goes public, the lawyer said, it's not just Kirk's reputation on the line, it's the entire network. Kirk paced the room, thinking aloud. They won't let this reach daylight. They'll bury it before that happens. Rasheeda looked out the window. Not if we get ahead of it first. She turned back to him, her eyes sharp. We can drop the truth before they do. All of it. Kirk shook his head. That's dangerous. So is silence, she said. The decision didn't come easy, but by nightfall, they had agreed. If the network wanted to destroy them, they would take the network down with them. They recorded a private video, just the two of them sitting side by side, explaining everything. Rasheeda spoke calmly, her voice steady. We've been part of this industry for a long time. We've made mistakes, and we've owned them. But this time, the lies aren't ours. Kirk followed. There are people using our names, our image, our pain for profit. This isn't just a storyline, it's our lives. They didn't mention names, but the message was clear. Once the video was ready, Rasheeda looked at Kirk. Are you sure? He hesitated, then nodded. Let them see it. She pressed upload. Within minutes, notifications began pouring in. Fans were stunned. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others skeptical. Media outlets picked it up instantly, spinning headlines like Rasheeda and Kirk expose corruption behind reality TV. The internet couldn't look away, but behind the applause and chaos, there was danger brewing. Late that night, as they sat in silence, Kirk's phone buzzed again. It was a blocked number. He answered reluctantly. A low voice spoke on the other end. You think this ends with a video? You just declared war. Then the line went dead. Kirk looked at Rasheeda, his face pale. They're watching us. She took a deep breath. Good, let them. I'm done hiding. Meanwhile, Karlie watched the video alone in her condo. For the first time, she felt something that looked like guilt. She poured herself a drink, staring at the screen. You really did it, huh? She whispered. Her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number, the same one that had threatened her before. You're next. She froze, realizing the storm she'd helped start was far from over. Outside, the city lights of Atlanta glowed beneath a darkening sky. Thunder rolled again, faint but steady, as if warning that the real reckoning hadn't even begun. And in that quiet moment, As the world scrolled and speculated, none of them knew that the next leak scheduled for release the following night would make everything they had seen so far look like nothing more than a preview of the chaos still to come. The following evening arrived heavy with tension, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. The Frost household was silent except for the occasional buzz of Kirk's phone lighting up on the kitchen counter. Rasheeda sat by the window, watching the street outside as if expecting something to happen. Every car that slowed down made her heart tighten. It wasn't fear exactly, it was anticipation, the uneasy kind that crawls beneath your skin. She had lived through betrayal, rumors, even fake storylines. But this was different. This time, the danger wasn't emotional. It was real. At exactly 8 p.m., her phone vibrated again. A message came through from an anonymous number. You can't stop what's already scheduled midnight. The truth drops whether you're ready or not. She showed it to Kirk. He rubbed his forehead and muttered, "They're bluffing," but even he didn't sound convinced. The video they had posted earlier had already reached 1 million views. Everyone was waiting for a follow-up. And whatever was coming at midnight had the whole internet counting down, like it was New Year's Eve. Meanwhile, across town, Karlie was pacing in her living room. She hadn't slept since the threat came through the night before. Her phone kept ringing, reporters, fans, even old friends trying to get a quote. She ignored them all. When the clock struck 9, she made a decision. She grabbed her coat, keys, and a small flash drive, then headed out into the Atlanta night. She wasn't going to wait for the truth to drop, she was going to find it. Back at the Frost house, Kirk poured himself a glass of water and stared blankly at the television, which was showing yet another gossip segment about their scandal. Every headline used the same photo: Rasheeda crying, Kirk looking down. It had become their public image now. "They're turning us into a meme," he said under his breath. Rasheeda turned from the window. "That's what happens when you let people write your story for you," she said. "We have to take it back." "How?" he asked. "We go live," she said. "Before midnight." "Before they do." Kirk blinked. "Go live where?" "Everywhere," she said. "Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We tell people the leak isn't the full truth. We make them question it before it drops." He hesitated for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, let's do it." By 10:30, lights were set up in their living room, the camera propped on a tripod. Rasheeda adjusted her makeup in the reflection of the TV screen. Kirk sat beside her, scrolling through his notes. She looked at him quietly and said, "No notes. Just talk. Be real." He nodded. The red light flicked on. "Hey y'all," Rasheeda began, her voice calm but firm. "We know the internet's been going crazy. We've seen the posts, the rumors, the so-called leaks. But we want you to hear it from us. Whatever's coming tonight, don't take it at face value." Kirk leaned forward. "Some people are trying to twist what really happened. They've been editing footage, spreading half-truths, and creating chaos for views. We're not perfect, but this right here is bigger than just us." They spoke for 20 minutes straight. No scripts, no cuts. When it ended, Rasheeda exhaled deeply and turned off the camera. "Whatever happens now," she said, "at least they'll know we didn't stay quiet." Just as they finished uploading the stream, a new alert flashed across their phones. Exclusive, unseen footage from Frost's scandal now live. The leak had dropped early. Rasheeda clicked the link. The video opened with grainy surveillance footage showing Kirk meeting with 2 men in a parking lot. One of them looked like Tyrone. The audio was muffled, but a single sentence stood out. "If this gets out, the network's done." Then another cut appeared, Kirk at a recording studio, handing over a stack of envelopes. The video ended with a voice saying, "He's not innocent, and neither is she." "They edited it," Kirk said, panicking. That second clip isn't even from the same night. But it was too late. Social media had already exploded. Hashtags flooded the timeline. Hashtag Frost Files, hashtag Reality Cover-Up, hashtag Justice for Rasheeda. The internet was dissecting every frame, accusing, analyzing, tearing apart their words from earlier. By midnight, Frost Bistro was trending again. Fans had gathered outside, chanting Rasheeda's name, demanding answers. The police were eventually called to disperse the crowd. The chaos felt surreal. Inside their home, Rasheeda turned off her phone and sank into the couch. "This is exactly what they wanted," she said quietly. Kirk didn't respond. He was staring at his laptop screen, his face pale. "What now?" she asked. "They hacked my email," he whispered. "Look." On his screen was an unread message from his own address, sent only minutes ago. The subject line read, "You can't delete the past." Attached was a zip file named season_footage_raw. He clicked it open. Dozens of clips appeared, many from years ago and edited scenes from the show. including arguments that were never aired, private confessions, and even footage of producers coaching them before takes. "They've been saving everything," Rasheeda said in disbelief. "They've been building this for years." Just then, her phone lit up again. It was Karlie. She answered quickly. "Where are you?" she demanded. "Meet me at the old studio on Boulevard," Karlie said, her voice trembling. "I found something you need to see. And hurry, someone's already here." Rasheeda grabbed her jacket. "Stay there," she said. Kirk tried to stop her. "You can't just walk into that mess." But she shook her head. "This is my mess too." The streets were slick with rain when she arrived. The studio parking lot was half lit, puddles reflecting the faint glow of street lamps. Karlie's car was parked near the entrance, the door still open. "Karlie," Rasheeda called out. There was no answer. She stepped inside, her footsteps echoing against the concrete floor. A faint noise came from one of the back rooms, a buzzing sound, like a phone vibrating on a table. She followed the sound until she found the source. A phone was lying on the floor, screen cracked, still recording a live stream that had already been broadcasting for several minutes. The frame showed nothing but shadows, but the comments were flooding in. Fans were watching, confused, typing things like, "What's happening? And is that Karlie's phone?" Then a figure moved in the background, just for a second before disappearing into the dark. Rasheeda's breath caught. She picked up the phone, ending the stream, and looked around. Karlie was nowhere to be seen. Her heart pounded as she turned back toward the exit. But just before she reached the door, she noticed something on the table. A single flash drive, wrapped in a folded napkin, with a handwritten note on top. It read, "They can erase clips, but not this one." Rasheeda took it and ran back to her car. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely put the key in the ignition. When she finally did, she glanced one last time at the studio. There was no movement, no sound, just the hum of the city in the distance. Back at home, Kirk was waiting, pacing by the window. When she walked in, soaked and breathless, he rushed toward her. "Where's Karlie?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she handed him the flash drive. "I don't know," she said, "but whatever's on here." She risked everything to leave it. They plugged it into the laptop. Inside was one video file. They clicked play. The screen showed a timestamp dated 3 months ago. Kirk was sitting in a conference room with 2 producers and someone the camera didn't catch fully. The conversation was clear. "If the ratings drop again," one producer said, "we'll fake a leak." Push drama between Kirk and Rasheeda. "It always works." Kirk leaned back, shaking his head. "You're playing with real lives." The producer smirked. "And you're getting paid for it." Rasheeda covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "So it was all a setup," she whispered. Kirk nodded slowly. Every bit of it. The realization hit them like thunder. All the pain, the betrayal, the chaos. The world had been watching a story that wasn't even theirs. And now, with that single video, the real truth had finally surfaced. Rasheeda sat still, the glow of the laptop screen flickering across her face as the footage ended. Silence filled the room, but her thoughts were loud, tumbling one over the other. Kirk leaned back in his chair, staring at the paused image of himself on the screen. That meeting 3 months ago that had caused all this chaos. Outside, rain still fell in thin silver sheets against the window, the kind that seemed endless. She finally whispered, "They played us." He nodded slowly. "They built us up just to tear us down. And we let them." She closed the laptop and stood, pacing the room. "We have to release this. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight." Kirk looked up. "And if they come after us?" "Then they do," she said. "But at least the truth will be ours this time." They set up Kirk's old camera again. This time, no lights, no filters, just the raw glow of the lamp on the table. Rasheeda pressed record and started talking. "People think they know our story," she said, her voice quiet but sure. "They think they've watched our lives unfold, that they've seen everything. But what they've been seeing was a script written by people who profit off our pain. This isn't about marriage anymore. It's about manipulation." Kirk followed, explaining how every scandal, every supposed betrayal, had been pushed by producers desperate to keep ratings alive. "They told us to fight, to cry, to forgive, to do it all again," he said. "They filmed it, edited it, sold it, and now they're trying to bury the truth." When the recording ended, Rasheeda uploaded the video to her verified account. It was past midnight. Within minutes, notifications began to explode again, but this time the comments were different. People weren't mocking or guessing, they were listening. Some fans wrote, "This changes everything." Others said, "We knew it was too real to be real." And under it all, the hashtags started changing. #FrostTruth, #FreeFromScript, #reality behind reality. But while the internet buzzed, the power in their house suddenly flickered and went out. The sudden darkness made both of them freeze. Kirk reached for his phone, using the flashlight to check the fuse box. Before he could open it, another text arrived from the same blocked number. "You were warned." He showed it to Rasheeda, who clenched her jaw. "They're scared," she said. "That's why they're trying to shut us down." Kirk shook his head. "No, they're not just scared, they're angry." The next morning, Atlanta woke up to chaos again. The video had gone viral overnight, picked up by national outlets and even major news stations. Reporters were now calling it the Frost Expos. Networks scrambled to respond, denying the claims, calling it fiction. But then another bomb dropped. Karlie's phone was found in that same abandoned studio. Detectives swarmed the area, and by noon, footage of flashing police lights filled every newsfeed. Fans began speculating she'd disappeared because of what she uncovered. Others believed she was in hiding. Rasheeda watched the coverage with her arms crossed, her eyes heavy from lack of sleep. Kirk sat beside her, silent. "Finally," she said, "this isn't ending until we finish what she started." Kirk looked at her, tired but determined. "You mean take it to the police?" "No," she said. "The police can't fight the media, but the truth can." 2 hours later, they met the lawyer again. She had dark circles under her eyes, clearly exhausted from the whirlwind. "They're trying to bury your video," she said. "Every outlet under contract with the network has been ordered to take it down. They're calling it defamatory." Rasheeda leaned forward. "Then we make sure it can't be erased. Upload it everywhere. Backup links, mirror servers, Reddit threads, whatever it takes." The lawyer hesitated. "You're about to make very powerful enemies." Rasheeda looked at Kirk. "We already have." That evening, bloggers started sharing links to the uncut footage from Karlie's flash drive. The evidence was undeniable. Meetings, hidden deals, even text messages between executives discussing how to amplify tension between Kirk and Rasheeda before the new season. The public turned. Thousands of fans demanded an investigation, sponsors pulled out, and within 24 hours, the network issued a statement claiming certain producers acted independently, but the damage was done. Still, the victory didn't feel like peace. The night air around their house seemed too quiet, the streets too empty. Kirk sat on the porch, watching a car parked across the street with its engine idling for too long. "You see that?" he whispered. Rasheeda joined him, her hand brushing his. "Let them watch," she said. "I'm not running anymore." He nodded, though a small part of him wondered how long they could hold their ground. 3 days later, a private investigator hired by their lawyer showed up with new information. He was an older man, slow-spoken but sharp. "Miss Frost," he said, laying a file on the table, "your friend Karlie's disappearance isn't random. She's alive, but she's in protective custody. Turns out, she was working with someone inside the network, a whistleblower who feared for his life. They handed over everything." Rasheeda blinked. "Everything. Contracts, recordings, payments, unedited footage. Years of it." The man said. "The feds are involved now. They're calling it corporate manipulation and fraud." Kirk leaned back in his chair, exhaling a breath that sounded like relief. "So it's really over." The investigator looked at him with a faint smile. "No, Mr. Frost. It's just beginning." And he was right. By the following week, the story had spread beyond Atlanta. National talk shows debated it. Journalists dug into the industry's dark corners. And suddenly, everyone wanted to talk about reality TV ethics. Rasheeda became the reluctant face of the movement. Interviews poured in, offers for documentaries, book deals, podcasts, but she turned them all down. "I'm not turning this into more content," she told Kirk. "I just want my life back." Still, fame has a way of pulling people back in. Paparazzi followed her to her boutique. Fans waited outside the bistro. Some even cried when they met her. They didn't see the exhaustion behind her smile, or the nights she still woke up sweating from nightmares of flashing lights and shouting producers. Kirk tried to stay steady beside her, rebuilding quietly, focusing on the restaurant. One evening, as they closed up, he said softly, "We're still standing." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, but we're not the same people anymore." Later that night, she scrolled through her phone, seeing messages from strangers thanking her for speaking up. One caught her eye, a direct message from a verified journalist. "I have the final file from Karlie. There's one more thing you need to see." She hesitated, then replied, "Send it." A few minutes later, a download appeared. She clicked play. It was footage from months before. A behind-the-scenes clip showing producers whispering to each other before rolling cameras. One of them said, "If we can't control them, we'll destroy them." And another voice, a familiar one, responded, "Then make sure it looks real." Rasheeda froze. The voice belonged to a man who had once been like family to her, a longtime producer. someone she had trusted for years. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. Kirk walked in, asking what was wrong. She handed him the phone. He watched in silence, his expression hardening. They were never filming a show, he said quietly. They were filming a trap. The next day, Rasheeda met the journalist in a quiet cafe downtown. He was nervous, glancing around as he slid a small envelope across the table. "This is the original statement Karlie was going to release before she went into hiding," he said. "It names names, executives, showrunners, even investors. It's everything." Rasheeda opened it and scanned the pages, her pulse racing as the pieces finally connected. "This could end their whole operation," she whispered. "It could also end you," he said. "Think carefully before you release it." She looked up, her jaw set. "I already have." That night, Kirk came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open again, the screen glowing in the dark. "You're posting it, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded. "This is for Karlie. For every woman who had her story twisted for TV. It ends tonight." She clicked upload. Within minutes, the files spread across every platform, hundreds of screenshots, emails, recordings. It was unstoppable. The network's servers crashed under the weight of public outrage. Statements were released, lawsuits filed, executives fired. And through it all, Rasheeda sat in silence, watching it unfold with a strange mix of triumph and sadness. She wasn't celebrating. She was grieving the years she'd spent performing a version of herself for cameras that never cared who she really was. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. Kirk made coffee quietly, glancing at her across the kitchen. "You did it," he said. She smiled faintly. "We did." Outside, the city was waking up to headlines that read, "Truth behind reality. Frost couple exposes TV corruption." But inside that house, it wasn't about fame anymore. It was about peace. Rasheeda walked to the door, stepped outside, and breathed in the morning air. The storm had passed, but the air still carried the scent of rain, like something washed clean. She knew the world would keep talking, keep spinning the story, but for once, it didn't matter. For the first time in years, the truth belonged to her. The sun hung low over Atlanta as the day faded into soft amber light. The Frost home was calm for the first time in what felt like forever. The phones had stopped ringing, the cameras had stopped following, and the world outside was finally starting to settle down. But inside, Rasheeda couldn't shake the quiet feeling that something was unfinished. She stood by the kitchen window, holding her coffee, staring out at the empty street. Kirk walked in, his phone in hand, scrolling through yet another flood of messages. "Everybody wants interviews," he said. "The Shade Room, TMZ, even CNN. They want us to go on air tonight." Rasheeda shook her head. "No, I said what I had to say. I'm done talking for them." Kirk sighed. "You know they'll twist it if you stay silent." "Let them," she said. "They twisted everything before." "I'm not feeding it again." He walked closer, lowering his phone. "You've changed," he said softly. She looked at him and gave a tired smile. "We both have." He reached out and took her hand. "I don't know what happens now, Sheeda. I don't even know who's still on our side." She squeezed his hand gently. "We don't need sides anymore. We just need peace." For a moment, they stood like that, the house quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. But then Kirk's phone buzzed again this time. A new message with a video attachment and no sender name. He frowned. Not again. Rasheeda's heart skipped. "Don't open it." But he already had. The video loaded slowly, showing grainy security footage of a dim hallway. At the end of it, a woman walked into frame. Karlie read, her hair tied back, her expression tense. She was talking to someone off camera. Her voice was faint, but clear enough to hear the words. "If this leaks, they'll know everything, even about the others." Then the clip cut out. Kirk looked up, alarmed. "The others? What others?" Rasheeda stared at the screen, frozen. "There's more," she whispered. She took the phone and replayed the clip, studying every detail. The hallway looked familiar, the pattern on the walls, the shape of the exit sign. She gasped. "That's the old production office, the one they shut down after season 6. Kirk frowned. "You think she went back there?" "No," she said slowly. "I think she filmed that before she disappeared." Without waiting, she grabbed her jacket and keys. "Where are you going?" Kirk asked. "To see it for myself." He moved to stop her. "It's dangerous." She met his eyes. "So is not knowing?" By the time she reached the old building, the sky had turned violet. The lot was deserted, the glass doors covered in dust and tape. She pushed through the side entrance where the lock was broken, the air thick with the smell of stale wood and old lights. Her footsteps echoed down the same hallway she'd seen in the video. She stopped near the far end, where a small office door stood slightly ajar. She pushed it open slowly. Inside, papers were scattered everywhere, old scripts, production schedules, broken equipment. But on the desk sat something newer. A laptop, its screen still on, running a timer that counted upward as if a recording had been left running. She approached it carefully. On the screen was a single file labeled final_cut_truth. She clicked it. The video showed unseen behind-the-scenes moments from the last season, arguments that had been staged, emotional breakdowns that had been rehearsed, even producers feeding lines to cast members through earpieces. Then came footage of a private meeting, one she recognized instantly. Kirk was in the room, sitting with two men and the same woman from the original leaked clip. But this time, there was sound. One of the men said, "If Rasheeda finds out, the storyline collapses. Make sure she never sees these payments." Kirk's voice followed, quiet but heavy. "She deserves the truth, even if it ruins everything." The clip ended with the man replying coldly, "Truth doesn't sell." Rasheeda stepped back, trembling. "Oh my God," she whispered. She closed the laptop, her eyes wet. Someone behind her cleared their throat. She spun around. Standing in the doorway was a man she didn't recognize, wearing a dark jacket and a network badge. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His tone wasn't threatening, but it was final. "You people don't understand what you've started." "I understand plenty," she said, steadying her voice. "You built lies for ratings. You broke families for numbers. You used us." The man sighed. "And you used it too. Don't act like you didn't benefit from the fame." She glared at him. "Not like this." He tilted his head. "You think you can clean this up by posting videos? The machine is bigger than you. It always wins." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. It was Kirk. "Where are you? I've been calling you, don't hang up. There's someone outside the house." Rasheeda froze. "What? A black SUV's been parked here for an hour," Kirk said, his voice low. "They're watching." She turned toward the man. "What did you do?" He raised his hands. "Nothing. But if you're smart, you'll leave before they make you disappear too." She didn't wait to hear more. She ran out of the office, through the hall, and into the parking lot. The sky had darkened completely, a storm brewing above. She drove back fast, her hands shaking on the wheel. When she reached home, Kirk was on the porch with his phone pressed to his ear. "They left 5 minutes ago," he said. "No plates, tinted windows." Rasheeda stepped out of the car, holding up the flash drive from the office. "They're watching because of this. I found the full cut. It proves everything." Kirk looked at her, the color draining from his face. "Then we're not safe here anymore." They packed that night, quietly, methodically. Kirk threw clothes into a duffel bag while Rasheeda gathered the laptop, drives, and important papers. Thunder rumbled outside as the rain started again. Before they left, she stood in the living room, looking at the framed photos, the family, the store, the weddings, all those years. "I don't even know what's real anymore," she whispered. Kirk placed a hand on her shoulder. That's enough." They drove out of the city just past midnight, following the back roads toward a small house Kirk's cousin owned in Macon. The plan was to stay off the radar until the lawyer confirmed what to do with the footage. As they drove, the radio played faint static until a news broadcast broke through. In breaking news, the voice said, "VH1 executives have been subpoenaed following the Frost Expos. Sources claim more cast members are preparing to come forward." Rasheeda turned the volume up. "It's happening," she said quietly. Kirk glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You lit the fire, Sheeda. Now let them burn." When they reached Macon, dawn was breaking. The countryside was silent, mist curling through the trees. They unpacked slowly, the exhaustion of the past weeks finally catching up. Kirk sat on the porch, staring into the distance, while Rasheeda brewed coffee inside. For a brief moment, peace returned. Then her phone buzzed again. She picked it up cautiously. It was a message from an unknown number, just one line. "You think you won. Check the news." Her stomach turned cold. She turned on the TV in the corner, flipping through channels until she found the report. The anchor was serious, the tone grim. In an unexpected turn, she said, "Karlie Red has been found unconscious in an undisclosed location. Authorities suspect foul play. She remains in critical condition." The mug slipped from Rasheeda's hand, shattering against the floor. Kirk ran inside. "What happened?" She pointed to the screen. "They got to her." He stared at the report, disbelief etched across his face. "After everything she did to bring the truth out." Rasheeda's eyes filled with tears. "We can't let them silence her story." She sat down at the table, pulling the laptop closer. "We have the footage. We have the evidence. If she can't speak, we'll speak for her." Kirk hesitated. "You sure you want to keep fighting this?" She nodded. "The truth doesn't stop because it hurts." It stops when people give up. And I'm not giving up. Outside, the wind picked up, the sky turning gray again. Atlanta's storm wasn't over, it had only shifted. And, as the rain began to fall once more, Rasheeda opened the file marked final_cut_truth, preparing to release the last piece of the story that started with a single leaked clip and had now grown into a battle for everything they had left to believe in. By the time the next upload went live, the sky over Macon had gone dark again. Rain drummed against the windows, steady and heavy, like the rhythm of a ticking clock. Rasheeda sat in front of the laptop, her face lit by the glow of the screen. Kirk was pacing behind her, his phone pressed to his ear as he talked to their lawyer. "We're past the point of no return." The lawyer's voice crackled through the speaker. "You both understand that, right? This isn't just a TV scandal anymore, it's federal now." Kirk ran a hand over his face. "We understand. Just tell us what happens next." "You stay quiet," she said. "Don't respond to anyone. Don't post. Let the evidence speak for itself." He ended the call and turned toward Rasheeda, who was still staring at the upload bar inching across the screen. "You sure you want to go through with this?" he asked quietly. She didn't look up. "It's already happening." The file finished uploading with a small chime. Within seconds, comments began pouring in. Fans recognized the background music, the same dramatic score used in the show's earlier seasons. The clip began with Karlie's voice, recorded sometime before her disappearance. "If you're hearing this," she said, "it means I didn't make it to release this myself, but somebody has to know. What you've been watching wasn't relit, was built, and the people behind it didn't care who got hurt." Her voice trembled toward the end, but her words were clear. The next sequence showed a montage of producers admitting on tape that they had manipulated storylines, leaked false footage, and paid tabloids to spread chaos before new episodes. It was impossible to deny. This was the kind of proof that couldn't be spun. As the world watched, Atlanta's entertainment industry froze. Phones went silent, lawyers scrambled, and networks started distancing themselves from the scandal. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag justice for Karlie. Hashtag truth over ratings. Hashtag Frost Files. Interviews were replayed. Past seasons were re-examined, and fans who had once lived for the drama were now calling for accountability. But for Rasheeda, sitting in that quiet Macon house, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. She closed the laptop slowly, leaning back in her chair. "She really risked everything," she whispered. Kirk nodded, sinking into the seat across from her. "She always said she wanted to control her own story," he said softly. "Maybe now she finally did." Rasheeda looked out the window at the rain-soaked fields. "They took everything from her, from all of us." She rubbed her eyes, exhaustion creeping into every word. "I just wanted peace. Now it's war." 2 days later, their lawyer called again. "The FBI wants to meet," she said. "They're building a case using your footage and Karlie's files. But there's something you should know. There's talk that someone from inside the network leaked information about where you're staying." Kirk's eyes widened. "You mean here? You need to move again," she said firmly. "Tonight?" They packed up fast, barely speaking. Kirk loaded the car while Rasheeda wiped down the counters. Taking one last look around the small house that had felt safe for only a few fleeting days, she turned off the lights, stepped outside, and locked the door. "Where to now?" she asked. "Lawyer's got a place in Savannah," Kirk said. "We'll stay there till this blows over." She nodded, though her gut told her nothing about this was going to blow over soon. The drive was long and quiet, the highway slick with rain. Rasheeda stared out the window as streetlights flickered past, her reflection pale against the glass. "You ever think about how it started?" she said after a while. "Just a video Karlie posted, and now look at us." Kirk kept his eyes on the road. Every storm starts small. By the time they reached Savannah, dawn was breaking. The lawyer's cottage sat near the water, surrounded by mossy trees and mist. It felt old but safe, untouched by the chaos of the city. They unpacked and slept through most of the morning. When Rasheeda woke, the world felt still again. She made coffee, stepped onto the porch, and breathed in the salty air. For a moment, it almost felt normal. But peace didn't last. By afternoon, news broke that another cast member had come forward, a former producer turned whistleblower. His statement confirmed everything: the manipulation, the staged fights, the fabricated relationships. But he added something new. The network didn't just create drama, he said. They controlled people's lives. They owned them. He also mentioned a private archive, a collection of unseen recordings, locked away somewhere in Atlanta that contained years of unreleased footage. Footage that could destroy careers, expose secrets, even personal crimes. When Kirk read the statement aloud, Rasheeda froze. A private archive, she repeated. That's what they were protecting. Kirk frowned. You think it still exists? She nodded slowly. And if it does, it's the reason people are getting hurt. That night, as the rain began again, Kirk's cousin called from Atlanta. Listen, man, he said nervously. Somebody broke into your restaurant. Nothing's missing, but the office is trashed. Like they were looking for something. Kirk's hand tightened around the phone. The drives, he whispered. I left backups there. Rasheeda looked at him sharply. Then they know we have them. The next morning, a black car appeared at the edge of the property. It didn't move. It didn't leave. Kirk watched it from the window while pretending not to notice. Probably press, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Rasheeda didn't answer. She just sat at the table, staring at the laptop, the weight of everything pressing down. By evening, the car was gone. But in its place came something else. A thick envelope slid under the door. Kirk opened it carefully. Inside was a single page with typed words. We can still make a deal. Come alone. An address was listed at the bottom. An abandoned film studio outside Atlanta. Rasheeda grabbed the paper. You're not going. Kirk shook his head. If they want to talk, maybe it's to end this without more people getting hurt. Or maybe it's a trap, she said. It's always a trap. He smiled faintly. Yeah, but maybe this time I'm the bait. She didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house made her flinch. When dawn came, Kirk was already gone, leaving a note on the kitchen counter. If I'm not back by sunset, call the lawyer. She drove circles around the living room for hours, checking her phone, pacing by the window. When the sun started to dip low again, her heart began to pound. She grabbed her keys and left, ignoring every warning her lawyer had given. The road back to Atlanta was long and empty. She reached the old studio as the last of the daylight faded. The building loomed like a ghost, silent except for the sound of wind pushing through broken windows. She stepped inside cautiously, the beam of her flashlight slicing through the dark. Kirk, she called. No answer. She followed the sound of dripping water deeper into the building. Then she saw a faint glow from under one of the doors. She pushed it open and froze. Kirk was sitting in a chair, his hands tied behind him, his face bruised but alive. Sheeda, he said weakly. Before she could move, a voice came from the shadows. You never should have come here. A tall man stepped forward, the same one from the old footage, one of the senior producers. He looked calm. You two really made a mess, he said. You think you can take down an empire built on secrets? Rasheeda's voice shook. You built it on people's pain. The man smiled. Pain sells. It always has. And you two were our best product. She clenched her fists. We're done being products. The man tilted his head. Maybe, but once the cameras roll, no one ever really leaves the show. Before he could move, a loud crash came from the hallway, flashing lights, shouting voices. Agents in dark jackets flooded the room. FBI, hands up. Chaos erupted. The producer was dragged to the floor while agents cut the ropes binding Kirk's hands. Rasheeda ran to him, holding his face, tears streaming. I told you not to come, she whispered. He smiled weakly, and missed the grand finale. Outside, rain poured harder as agents loaded boxes of evidence into Van's computers, drives, papers. The empire had finally fallen. Hours later, as dawn broke over Atlanta, Rasheeda and Kirk sat in the back of an unmarked car, blankets over their shoulders. The lead agent turned and said quietly, It's over. You did good. Rasheeda nodded slowly. No, she said. We just told the truth. That's all. They drove home in silence. The city was waking up, the sky glowing pale gold. For the first time in years, there were no cameras waiting, no producers calling, no lines to deliver. Just quiet. Rasheeda looked at Kirk and smiled softly. You think people will ever see us for who we really are? Kirk looked out the window, the sunlight catching his face. They already are, he said. And for once, she believed him. The days that followed moved slower, as if the city itself was catching its breath after months of noise. The Frost House, which had once been filled with shouting, ringing phones, and the constant buzz of online chaos, was finally still. Outside, the garden was quiet except for the sound of the wind brushing through the leaves. Rasheeda sat on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the morning unfold in muted colors. Kirk joined her a few minutes later, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He sat beside her without saying anything, both of them listening to the faint hum of distant traffic. It feels strange, Rasheeda said finally, her voice low. Quiet like this. Kirk took a slow sip before answering. Maybe that's what we were fighting for the whole time. Just a little peace. She nodded but didn't smile. Peace doesn't erase everything though. I still see those cameras when I close my eyes. I still hear the producers shouting, "Cut," every time we argued. It's like they filmed pieces of us we'll never get back. Kirk looked down at his hands. Maybe that's the price of being real on a fake show. They don't just take your story, they take your silence too. The phone buzzed inside, breaking the calm. Rasheeda stood and went to check it. It was their lawyer again. "Good news," she said over speaker. "The federal case is moving fast. Several executives have been indicted. The network shutting down production indefinitely." Kirk exhaled sharply. "That's something. At least." The lawyer hesitated. "There's one more thing. The investigators recovered Karlie's personal files. She left a statement recorded, time-stamped a week before she disappeared. They're releasing it publicly tonight. She wanted you both to see it first." Later that evening, as the sun dropped behind the city skyline, Rasheeda and Kirk sat together on the couch. The lights dimmed. The video began with Karlie sitting at her vanity, her hair loosely tied, her tone serious but calm. "If this ever airs," she said, "it means I couldn't fix it the way I wanted. I know people think I started all this for attention, but that's not true. I leaked that clip because I was tired of being used. I wanted to wake everyone up to remind us we were people before we were characters. If this destroys me, so be it. At least the truth won't die with me." Her voice faltered toward the end. "Rasheeda, Kirk, don't let them rewrite this when it's over. Tell it your way." The video ended with a soft click. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Rasheeda stared at the blank screen until tears blurred her vision. "She saved us," she whispered. Kirk nodded slowly. "She saved the whole cast." They sat together in silence, grief and relief tangled in the same breath. In the following weeks, the city began to shift. Headlines that once screamed scandal now spoke of reform. New shows were canceled. Old contracts were investigated. A few networks even promised transparency reforms. Atlanta, once the center of reality drama, was now the center of reckoning. Rasheeda returned to her boutique after months away, stepping through the door like it was sacred ground. The scent of fabric and perfume filled the air. Employees hugged her. Cameras nowhere in sight. "Welcome back, boss," one of them said, smiling. For the first time, it didn't feel rehearsed. Meanwhile, Kirk quietly reopened Frost Bistro. It wasn't about publicity anymore, it was about rebuilding. The first night back, locals filled the tables, not to gossip, but to support. The music was soft, the lights warm, and the laughter real. He stood behind the counter, watching it all with quiet pride. When Rasheeda walked in, their eyes met, and for a moment, the noise of the past fell away. Later that night, they drove to a small overlook above the city, the skyline glittering in the distance. Rasheeda leaned against the car, the wind moving her hair. "You ever think we'll stop being a headline?" she asked. Kirk smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but at least now we control what it says." She looked out at the lights. "Karlie didn't get to see this," she said softly, "but she's part of it." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "She'd probably still find a way to make it dramatic," he said, and she laughed through her tears. As the months passed, the noise faded further. Interviews slowed, articles moved on, and news stories filled the feeds. Rasheeda's boutique grew again, this time on her terms. Kirk's restaurant became a local favorite, known for good food and peace, not gossip. Sometimes fans stopped by, still curious, still asking questions. And Rasheeda would smile politely, tell them thank you, and change the subject. She wasn't living for their opinions anymore. One evening, long after closing time, she sat alone in the boutique's back room, sorting through old boxes of photos and show memorabilia. At the bottom of one, she found a framed picture from the early seasons, the whole cast laughing, arms around each other, unaware of what was coming. She traced her fingers across the glass and whispered, "We were just kids." Her phone buzzed a notification from an unknown number. She opened it cautiously. It was a message with a single photo attached. Karlie, sitting on a beach somewhere, smiling under a wide straw hat. No caption, no context, just that image. Rasheeda's breath caught. "Kirk," she called out. He came running, confused. She turned the screen toward him. He stared, then smiled slowly. "She's alive." Rasheeda's eyes filled with tears. "She did it," she said. She disappeared before they could finish her story. Kirk put an arm around her shoulder. "Guess some people are too real to be scripted." She laughed softly through her tears, clutching the phone. "I hope she's free." Outside, Atlanta lights shimmered against the night. The city alive but calmer now, quieter, as if the chaos had finally learned to breathe. Inside that little boutique, surrounded by the echoes of the past, Rasheeda felt something she hadn't felt in years, peace that didn't need an audience. She looked at Kirk and smiled. A real one this time. "It's over," she said. He nodded. No, he said quietly. It's finally beginning, and for once, the story didn't belong to the network, or the blogs, or the fans. It belonged to them, the people who lived it, lost it, and found themselves again when the cameras stopped rolling. Weeks turned into months. And Atlanta felt different, like a city that had survived a storm and didn't know how to be loud anymore. The gossip blogs still existed, but their tone had softened. The shows that once thrived on shouting matches and broken glasses were now off the air, replaced by documentaries about truth, about rebuilding, about what it costs to turn people's lives into entertainment. And through it all, Rasheeda and Kirk stayed quiet. They didn't attend talk shows. They didn't sign deals. They didn't let anyone else narrate what they had already lived. Most mornings were simple now. Rasheeda woke early, brewed coffee, opened the boutique, and greeted the same regulars who had supported her through every scandal. Sometimes they asked about the old days, and she'd smile politely but change the subject. She had stopped explaining herself. The silence was worth more than the noise ever had been. Kirk, meanwhile, had found a rhythm again at Frost Bistro. He cooked more than he delegated now, laughing with the kitchen staff, checking plates himself. It grounded him. It felt human. On a cool Friday afternoon, as the sun began to fade, Rasheeda was closing up shop when she saw a familiar car parked across the street. It was black, with tinted windows, but not the threatening kind, just clean, polished. Still, the driver's door opened, and out stepped a woman in sunglasses, her hair tucked under a hat. She moved with a quiet confidence, the kind that couldn't be faked. When she reached the doorway, she took off her glasses. It was Karlie. Rasheeda froze for a heartbeat before rushing forward and pulling her into a tight hug. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Rasheeda stepped back, her voice trembling. You're really here? Karlie smiled faintly. I never left. Just had to disappear for a while. Rasheeda shook her head, still processing it. The world thought you were gone. That's what they wanted them to think, Karlie said. It was safer that way. Some people didn't want the truth getting too far. They sat in the boutique's back office, the air thick with nostalgia and relief. Karlie looked older, calmer, but her spark was still there, the same fire that had started everything. How did you find me? Rasheeda asked. I never lost track, Karlie said with a small grin. I watched every move you made, every word you said. You did what I couldn't, you finished it. Rasheeda exhaled. We finished it together. Karlie reached into her bag and pulled out a small flash drive. One last thing, she said. Something I never released. Not scandal, not drama, just truth. Behind the scenes footage of everyone laughing, helping each other, showing love when the cameras were off. I kept it because I wanted people to see we weren't just stories. We were family once. Rasheeda took the drive in her hand, feeling its weight like a memory. You sure you want this out there? She asked. Yeah, Karlie said softly. It's time to remind them that not everything was fake. That night, they gathered at Frost Bistro. Kirk was behind the counter, wiping down glasses when he looked up and saw Karlie walking in. For a second, he thought he was seeing a ghost. Well, damn, he said, setting the towel down. If it isn't the woman who broke the internet. Karlie laughed, the sound bright and real. Don't act like you didn't deserve it. Kirk grinned. I probably did. They ate, they talked, they remembered. There was no film crew, no staged laughter, just people who had been through too much and still found a way to smile. When the night grew late, Rasheeda pulled out her laptop. Ready? She asked. Karlie nodded. Kirk leaned over her shoulder as she uploaded the file, the real footage. The one that showed their humanity instead of their headlines. It went live at midnight. By morning, it had gone viral again, but this time for the right reasons. Fans flooded the comments, writing things like "This is the love we never saw," and "They deserved better." Media outlets called it the video that healed Atlanta. People who had once watched for drama were now watching for truth. A week later, the three of them stood on stage at a charity event hosted downtown, surrounded by cameras that, for once, didn't feel intrusive. The host introduced them as the survivors who changed the narrative. Karlie spoke first, her voice steady. We all got lost in the game once, but sometimes, losing everything is what makes you real again. Kirk followed, thanking everyone who had stood by them. Rasheeda went last, her words simple but powerful. Our story isn't perfect, she said, but it's ours now. No one edits this version. The crowd rose in applause. After the event, they walked out into the cool night air. The skyline glowed around them, tall and endless, and for the first time, there was no tension in their steps. Karlie stopped and looked back toward the city. You think people will ever stop chasing drama? She asked. Rasheeda smiled softly. Maybe not, but at least they'll remember what's real. A car pulled up for Karlie. She hugged them both, whispered thank you, and slipped into the back seat. They watched as the car disappeared into the traffic, her shadow swallowed by the lights. Kirk turned to Rasheeda. You think that's the last time we'll see her? Rasheeda looked at the empty street. No, she said quietly. People like her don't fade. They just move on to the next story. They drove home in silence, the radio humming softly. When they reached their house, Kirk killed the engine and looked at her. So what now? He asked. She smiled faintly. We live. No scripts. Just life. Inside, the house felt warm again. The framed pictures no longer looked like reminders of mistakes, they looked like proof of survival. Rasheeda walked to the window, watching the streetlights flicker. It's funny, she said. The world saw us fall apart, but not many people get to see what happens after. Kirk wrapped his arms around her from behind. Then let's make sure what happens after is worth it. And as the city lights dimmed and the night deepened, the Frost home stayed quiet not from emptiness, but from peace, finally earned. Outside, the world moved on, but inside, their story stayed right where it belonged, real, unfiltered. And finally spring came to Atlanta with a quiet kind of beauty, soft breezes, pale sunlight, and streets that no longer whispered the Frost name in scandal. The chaos had faded into memory, leaving behind something that resembled balance. The boutique thrived again, full of light and movement. And Frost Bistro had turned into a neighborhood favorite, where regulars laughed over music instead of gossip. Still, some days, when Rasheeda walked to her car after closing, she could feel echoes of the past in the air, the hum of old cameras, the ghosts of spotlights. Fame didn't leave, it just slept. One morning, she received an invitation from a media foundation. They wanted her to speak at a seminar titled Reclaiming Reality, Voices Beyond the Edit. She almost deleted the email but paused. There was something about it that felt right, like a final chapter that needed to be written aloud. When she told Kirk, he nodded. You should go, he said. You earned the right to tell your story. She smiled faintly. Our story, she corrected him. A week later, she stood on a stage in front of a quiet audience. The event wasn't glamorous, no flashing lights, no tabloid coverage, just young producers, journalists, and students, notebooks open, waiting to listen. She spoke for nearly an hour. Not from notes but from memory. She talked about how easily people could lose themselves chasing attention. How truth gets rewritten when entertainment replaces empathy. Her voice never wavered. When she finished, the room rose in applause that felt different, soft, honest, human. Afterward, a young woman approached her backstage. She couldn't have been older than 23, eyes bright with curiosity. I grew up watching you, she said shyly. Back then, I thought it was all real. But now, seeing you here, it's like meeting someone who survived the storm. Rasheeda smiled gently. We all survive something, she said. Just make sure what you create doesn't take someone else's peace. That night, she drove home under a sky washed clean by spring rain. Kirk was waiting on the porch, the lights warm around him. How was it? He asked. She sat beside him, slipping off her heels. Different, she said softly. For once, I wasn't performing. He smiled. That's the best kind of stage. Over the next few months, their lives settled into a quiet rhythm. They began filming small vlogs, not reality shows, just glimpses of their day-to-day life. Cooking, working, traveling. No drama, no edits, just authenticity. To their surprise, people loved it. Comments flooded in, saying how peaceful it felt, how inspiring it was to see them without scripts. The irony wasn't lost on them after years of chaos. The thing that finally made people listen was the sound of calm. One evening, while Kirk was closing the restaurant, a man walked in wearing a faded baseball cap and carrying a folder. You're Kirk Frost? He asked. Depends who's asking, Kirk said cautiously. The man smiled. Name's Devin. I used to work on your show. I was one of the junior editors. Kirk frowned. What brings you here after all this time? The man placed the folder on the counter. Closure, he said. These are copies of old tapes I kept, moments they cut out, things that showed the truth. I couldn't watch them destroy people anymore. Kirk flipped through the pages, recognizing scene numbers, names, even times. Why bring this now? He asked. Devin hesitated. Because I'm starting something new. A small production studio. Real stories this time. No scripts. No lies. And I want you and Rasheeda to help. Kirk studied him for a long moment. You want us on camera again, not as subjects, Devin said. As mentors. That night, Kirk told Rasheeda everything. She listened quietly, her expression unreadable. You trust him? She asked. I think he means it, Kirk said. He's young, but he's got the right idea. She thought for a long time before answering. Then maybe this is what comes next, not revenge, not exposure, just rebuilding. Teaching the next generation how to do it better. 3 months later, the first pilot of Truth in Frame premiered online. It wasn't flashy, just real people telling their unedited stories. The tagline read, "Because reality doesn't need direction." Rasheeda and Kirk co-produced it. Choosing voices that had never been heard before: single mothers, small artists, working families. The show grew slowly but steadily, and within a year, it had a loyal audience that valued honesty over spectacle. Meanwhile, Atlanta began to change too. New creators were emerging, inspired by the Frost movement. Some started independent channels. Others launched local podcasts about truth and storytelling. And quietly, without ever trying to, Rasheeda and Kirk became symbols of that change, proof that redemption wasn't found in headlines, but in consistency. One night, near the end of summer, they hosted a small dinner at the bistro. Friends gathered: musicians, stylists, shop owners, even a few old castmates. Laughter filled the room, the kind that came from people who had known pain and decided to live anyway. Karlie sent flowers with a note that said, "For the people who outlived the script." Rasheeda read it aloud, smiling through tears. As the night drew to a close, she stepped outside, letting the humid air wash over her. The city lights shimmered against the horizon, reflected in her eyes. Kirk joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "You remember when we thought this was the end?" he said softly. She nodded. "Yeah. Turns out it was just the cut before the next scene." He smiled. "And no director yelling action this time." "No," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Just life finally happening the way it should." The streets of Atlanta glowed quiet beneath them, the noise of the past gone, replaced by the hum of something new: hope, maybe, or just peace that had taken the long way home. As the lights dim and the screen fades to black, take a moment to breathe, because what you just heard wasn't just another story from Atlanta. It was a reminder that behind every rumor, every leaked clip, and every so-called scandal, there are real people trying to hold on to something genuine. Rasheeda, Kirk, and even Karlie went through a storm that was bigger than any TV script could write. Their names were turned into headlines, their pain turned into content, their lives shaped by strangers who thought they could decide what truth looked like. But in the end, the truth found its way home. This isn't about fame or exposure anymore. It's about reflection. About remembering that every time we click, share, or comment on somebody else's downfall, we're feeding the same machine that tore them apart. The Frost story shows us how easily entertainment can become exploitation, how quickly laughter can turn into judgment, and how hard it is to rebuild when the world thinks it already knows who you are. But it also shows something else: resilience, forgiveness, and the quiet power of choosing peace after chaos. So if you're watching this right now, let this moment remind you that not every headline deserves your belief. Not every edit shows the truth, and not every villain is who they're made out to be. Sometimes the loudest people in the story are the ones hiding the most lies. And sometimes the quietest ones are carrying the truth that no one wanted to hear. Rasheeda found her peace not by fighting back louder, but by stepping back completely and letting truth speak for itself. Kirk learned that reputation means nothing when you lose yourself trying to protect it. And Karlie, wherever she is, became proof that courage doesn't always survive the spotlight. It survives in the shadows, where the real fight happens. This story was never just about betrayal. It was about control: who holds it, who loses it, and what happens when people take it back. For years, Atlanta's reality scene fed on heartbreak like currency. It made fans addicted to seeing people fall apart. But the Frost story broke that cycle. It forced everyone to stop and ask, at what cost? And maybe that's what we needed. Maybe that's why this story matters, not because of the tears, or the fights, or the rumors, but because for once, we saw what happens after the drama ends. So as the music fades, I want you to think about how stories shape us, and how easily truth can get lost when there's a camera rolling. Think about what it means to stand up for yourself when the world wants you to perform. Think about how hard it is to choose honesty when lies are easier to sell. That's what Rasheeda did. That's what Kirk finally understood. And that's what Karlie fought for, even when it cost her everything. If you've been following their journey from the beginning, from the leaked footage to the quiet ending, you've seen the full circle: the fall, the exposure, the reckoning, and finally, the healing. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a cleansing. And somewhere in that, maybe you recognized a little of yourself, someone trying to hold on to truth in a world that keeps editing it away. Now it's your turn to keep that truth alive. Share your thoughts below. Tell us what this story made you feel. Do you believe the Frost legacy deserved redemption, or do you think the damage was already done? Do you think reality TV should change, or is the chaos part of what keeps people watching? Your voice matters here, because this conversation isn't just about them, it's about all of us. And if you've ever been judged, misunderstood, or taken out of context, this one's for you. Remember, no one gets to narrate your story except you. The world will try to twist your truth, but only you can decide which version survives. So hit that like button if you felt this story hit deeper than gossip. Drop a comment and tell us what you think about how Rasheeda handled the storm. And if you want more stories that pull back the curtain and show what really happens behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next chapter in Atlanta's truth movement is coming. And trust me, you won't want to miss where it goes next. Some stories end with silence, others end with applause, but this one ends with understanding that truth, once found, doesn't fade. It grows, it inspires, and it reminds us that no matter how many times they try to rewrite your life, the truth will always have the final word. So as this video ends, take a second to think about that. Think about what it means to walk away from chaos with your head held high. Think about how it feels to rebuild after being broken in front of millions. And when you think of Rasheeda, Kirk, and Karlie, don't remember the rumors. Remember the strength it took to stand in front of the world and say, "This is who we really are." You've been watching Viral Celeb, and this was more than just another love and hip-hop story. It was a lesson in truth, redemption, and resilience. If you've ever been through a storm and came out stronger, hit that like button. If you believe every person deserves a second chance, share this video so their story keeps reaching the people who need to hear it most. And if you're here for the real, unfiltered, raw side of Atlanta, the side that doesn't make the cut on TV, subscribe right now, because we're not done telling it. The world loves drama, but sometimes, the real drama is survival. This story proved it. And if you stayed till the end, that means you're not just a viewer, you're part of the truth movement. So stay tuned, stay aware, and remember, don't believe everything you see, believe what you feel. That's the only kind of reality that can't be edited. Thank you for watching. Now tell your truth.